I have been watching First Take for a long time, long enough to understand the rhythms of it, the patterns, the way certain segments feel before they turn into something memorable. There is a texture to ordinary television, even very good, very entertaining television, that is fundamentally different from the texture of a moment that is actually historic. Ordinary television feels like television. Historic moments feel like something else entirely, something rawer and less controlled, like you are watching something happen rather than watching something be performed. What I witnessed that morning on First Take had that second texture from the very first 30 seconds. Something in the air was different, and by the time it was over, I understood why. It started with Stephen A. Smith making a claim that was specific enough to be either completely credible or completely reckless. The kind of claim where there is no comfortable middle ground. He said the New York Knicks were in serious advanced conversations about acquiring Domantas Sabonis from the Sacramento Kings. Not casual interest, not exploratory dialogue, serious advanced conversations that had progressed well beyond the stage where a deal is hypothetical. He laid out the case, the fit next to Jalen Brunson, the upgrade at the 5, the way Sabonis' playmaking would solve specific problems that had haunted the Knicks in recent playoff runs. He said Leon Rose and the Knicks front office had done the homework, had identified Sabonis as the answer to a real question, and were actively working to make it happen. Hey, what's up everyone? Real quick before we get into everything, that like button is literally what determines if this reaches hundreds or thousands of fans. Takes 1 second, but makes a huge impact on the channel's growth. Just smash that like button right now. It's the easiest thing you can do, but honestly, the biggest way to support this content. Every single like pushes this further, so hit it now. He said all of this with the particular authority Stephen A. assumes when he believes he is right, which is an authority that operates on the frequency of someone who has spent their entire career betting on the quality of their information and winning enough of those bets to double down on their own confidence. He was not guessing, he was reporting, and he needed everyone in that studio and everyone watching at home to understand the difference. Shannon Sharpe did not understand the difference, or at least he was not willing to accept it without a fight. Shannon is the perfect counterweight to Stephen A. in these moments, not because he is louder or more aggressive, but because he is more genuinely skeptical. He processes claims through the filter of what makes structural sense rather than what makes for a compelling story, and the story Stephen A. was telling did not fully make structural sense to him. He pointed out that the Knicks already had Karl Anthony Towns at the 5. He pointed out that Leon Rose had built the current roster deliberately and was not going to dismantle it on the basis of a rumor that had not been confirmed by anyone with direct knowledge. He said Stephen A. was doing what he always does, taking a preliminary conversation and turning it into a headline that then fails to materialize. He said it calmly with examples, and he said it in a way that was essentially a challenge. Prove it. And Stephen A. said, okay, I will. The phone came out of his jacket pocket in one smooth motion. The contact was found quickly, too quickly actually, for someone who was improvising. This was not spontaneous. Stephen A. had been thinking about this moment, had decided in advance that if Shannon pushed back hard enough, he was going to do exactly this. He dialed, he pressed speaker. He placed the phone on the desk. The room went completely still in that specific way that television studios do when everyone present realizes simultaneously that something is about to happen that is outside the script. The phone rang twice. Someone picked up. A voice said hello with the casual warmth of a person answering a call from a trusted contact. No guardedness, no formality, just a human being picking up his phone in the middle of his morning and saying hello to someone he expected to be having a normal conversation with. What happened next, in the span of approximately 30 seconds before the voice on the other end of the line understood where he was, constitutes some of the most valuable unfiltered information about an NBA front office's intentions that has ever been broadcast on live television. The source did not speak carefully because he had no reason to speak carefully. He was talking to Stephen A. Smith. He thought he was in a private conversation. And so he said things that private conversations produce and press conferences never will. He confirmed that the Knicks had been in contact with Sacramento's front office, not peripherally, not through intermediaries, not in the vague, unattributable way that league sources are usually described, in direct, substantive, ongoing contact. He said Leon Rose and the Knicks basketball operations team had identified a specific problem in their playoff structure and had concluded that Sabonis was the most realistic and most efficient solution to that problem. He said the phrase that jumped out at me more than anything else in the call. He called the potential pairing of Brunson and Sabonis a nightmare for opposing coaches. He said it matter-of-factly, the way you say something that you have discussed at length with people who agree with you and no longer feel the need to justify. He talked about what Sabonis' presence would do to the second chance point problem that had haunted the Knicks in multiple playoff series. He confirmed that the discussions were further along than anything that had been reported publicly. And he said, with a casualness that only exists in conversations between people who share the same information, that this was a real thing. Then he paused, and in the pause he heard something, the particular acoustic signature of a live broadcast environment, the ambient hum of equipment, the slight echo, the background presence of a space designed for audio production rather than privacy. His voice changed immediately. It went from relaxed to careful in the space of a single breath. He said, "Am I on speaker?" Stephen A. said yes. The call ended. Molly reacted first, which is a testament to her professionalism because her reaction was the correct one. She said this was not something the show could endorse, that sources operate under an expectation of privacy, and that what had just happened set a precedent she found genuinely troubling. She said it firmly and without drama, and she was right. Shannon sat completely still for a moment that felt long, staring at the phone on the desk like he was trying to understand how he had arrived at this exact point in his life. He said eventually that he had not thought Stephen A. was actually going to do it. And Stephen A., and this is the part I keep coming back to, this is the part that makes the whole thing so perfectly exactly him, leaned back in his chair, looked at Shannon and then at Molly and said, "That's what I thought." 4 words, delivered at approximately half the volume of his normal speaking voice, and the studio erupted. Let me now take every piece of information that source delivered before he realized the world was listening and worked through it methodically, because there is a real basketball story here that deserves to be told with the seriousness it warrants. Start with the fundamental basketball case, because it is the foundation of everything else. Jalen Brunson is one of the best point guards in the NBA. I say this not as opinion, but as observable fact, supported by 3 consecutive seasons of elite performance in the highest pressure environment professional basketball has to offer. Brunson gets where he wants to go on a basketball court with an efficiency that is almost mechanical. His footwork is impeccable, his feel for space is extraordinary, and his ability to draw fouls in the mid-range and at the rim is the kind of skill that seems impossible to defend because it is grounded in an understanding of the rulebook and the geometry of the game that most players simply do not have. He averaged over 26 points and nearly 8 assists in the 2024-25 season, while doing it all with the physical composure of someone who has been playing in big moments his entire life. But here's the thing about Brunson that the good analysts understand and the casual observers miss. Brunson's ceiling as a player is directly connected to the quality of the passing big next to him. When Brunson has a center who can receive, make a decision, and either keep the ball moving or score inside, the entire offense becomes more efficient because the defense cannot commit to stopping any single action. They cannot blitz Brunson because the big punishes them with the pass. They cannot drop back because Brunson gets to his pull-up from 15 feet without any resistance. They cannot switch because the big either seals the smaller defender inside or makes the pass before the switch is complete. This sounds abstract until you put a specific name in the big's position, and the name that fits every requirement of that description better than almost any other center in the league is Domantas Sabonis. Sabonis' playmaking numbers are not just good for a big man, they are good for any player. Over 7 assists per game in his best seasons. An assist rate that puts him in the conversation with actual point guards. His entire offensive vocabulary is built around finding the right play rather than forcing his own shot, which makes him exactly the kind of interior presence that unlocks everyone around him. His handoff game in particular, the way he uses his body on the short roll to put the ball handler in space at the precise moment the defense is most vulnerable, is a weapon that the Knicks currently do not have at that position, and its absence has been felt in exactly the playoff moments where they needed it most. The source mentioned second chance points specifically, and this is worth unpacking because it is the most underappreciated dimension of Sabonis' game. Offensive rebounding is the most efficient play in basketball in terms of expected points per possession, because it converts a missed shot, a possession that was already lost, into a new possession against a defense that has relaxed. In a 7-game playoff series, where every possession carries amplified weight and defensive intensity is at its highest, the ability to generate offensive rebounds is the difference between series that go 6 games and series that go 4. Sabonis averaged over 3 offensive rebounds per game in his peak seasons. He has a gift for reading the arc of a shot before it leaves the rim, for finding angles that the defensive rebounder has not covered, for converting his superior positioning into live ball situations that the scoreboard immediately reflects. The Knicks have been a team that fights hard enough to be in every series, but has struggled to create the margin that separate playoff teams from championship contenders. Sabonis' presence would create that margin in a way that no free agent signing and no other available trade target currently can. The source confirmed that Leon Rose has engaged seriously with Sacramento, and the significance of that detail cannot be overstated. Rose is not impulsive, he is methodical, deliberate, and specifically allergic to the kind of flashy move that looks good in a press release but disrupts team chemistry. When Rose puts his front office into active contact with another team's front office on a player of this caliber, it means the homework has been done, the film has been watched, the salary structure has been analyzed, the fit has been modeled, and the conclusion that has come back is, this works, this makes us better, this is worth the assets it will cost. The asset conversation brings us to the Karl Anthony Towns question that every Knicks fan is already asking, because the obvious math of acquiring Sabonis involves some version of KAT moving in the other direction. The source did not explicitly confirm that Towns would be part of the package. He spoke about the Knicks solving a problem and being further along than reported, not about specific players changing hands. But the structural reality of a deal with Sacramento, a team that needs youth and picks and upside in return for a proven all-star, suggests that the Knicks package would include at minimum a significant first-round pick commitment and probably a player with genuine upside who Sacramento could build around. Whether that player is Karl Anthony Towns specifically or a combination of other assets is the negotiating detail that separates the framework the source described from the final deal that gets announced. What is not negotiable and what the source made absolutely clear before the acoustic signature of the studio ended his candor is that both organizations believe there is a deal that makes sense. That belief is the engine of every trade in NBA history. When two teams are both convinced that an exchange improves their respective positions, the deal eventually happens. The specific terms may change, the timeline may shift, the public narrative may go through 3 cycles of rumors and denials and re-emergences before anything official is announced. But the belief on both sides, confirmed by a voice that had no reason to be careful, is the thing that matters. And we heard that belief expressed without filter, without spin, without the protective language of official communication. We heard it on speakerphone, live, in front of millions of people, on a Tuesday morning when Shannon Sharpe thought he was calling a bluff, and Stephen A. Smith turned out to not be bluffing at all.